Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to HR Week 2021. And yes, this is track A. You've chosen this one. You had different choices. You've chosen this one, and you will not be disappointed at all as we move right on to, once again, employee experience. A little bit different this time. Employee experience by design. So what are the organizations? What are organizations, small, large, or somewhere in the middle, somewhere in between? What are they really doing to improve the experience of their people? And maybe more importantly, why does it all matter? We're going to hear right now, hopefully, answers to those questions and many more as well with our next speaker, really shining light certainly on that topic. So a warm welcome coming into our virtual playground right now, Director at Fathom XP, Belinda Ganaway. Belinda, I can see you. I can almost hear you. I can hear you. I can see you and hear you. You've got that map on your. Is that a map on the right-hand side?
Here?
Yeah, that looks like a map.
This was my my sort of mastery plan for the year that I did in January. All the things I want to focus on and explore for the year.
Is it going well?
Bits and pieces. Not too bad. Not too bad. So I'll give myself 7 out of 10.
Okay, good. Well, we got another. Well, we haven't actually. You got a month and a half left.
4 weeks.
4 weeks, squeeze it all in and you'll be fine. And then the next plan, I'll ask you the same thing next year. Right. Excellent. I'll leave it over to you now. Remember, at the end, towards the end, hopefully we'll have some questions. People are curious and they have their own take and maybe want to see what you think of their question. I'll come back on in, ask those questions to you, and then we'll take it from there. But in the meantime, over to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I really look forward to hearing those questions. So I'm just going to share my screen. Give me one moment whilst I do that. Here we go. Hopefully this is the share screen. Here we go. Oh, just going to... No, window. Right. Hopefully that is all seamless. Excellent. Well, I'm hoping you can see what I can see. So thank you. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk with you today. I really love talking because I really love it to be a dialogue. So I'd love to hear back from you. Any questions that you have at the end, or connect with me on social media and we can continue the conversation. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the insight and learnings that myself and my co-author Emma Bridger discovered in writing our new book, Employee Experience by Design: How to Create an Effective EX for Competitive Advantage. Before I jump into that, what I'd quite like to do is just go backwards a little bit, just to explain a little bit about who I am and how I come to be in front of you today. So I began my career actually as a journalist. So I began my career as a journalist in the UK Houses of Parliament, hopefully familiar to you for Big Ben and all sorts of other things. The reason for sharing this with you now is that I learned a lot about organizational culture when I was there, and this has kind of stayed with me throughout my career. I think there's a really interesting link between culture and employee experience. And I've heard this described previously as culture being the soup within which employee experience swims. Now, what do I mean by that? Is that it's very difficult to imagine people having a great employee experience in a very negative organizational culture. But actually, if you look at that in reverse, just because you've got a great organizational culture doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to have a great employee experience. And for me, that tells me a lot about employee experience and organizational culture. So what's the link back to the UK Houses of Parliament? Now, organizational culture, I believe, is built up in layers. And those layers are added to over the years. So the way that things are, maybe the roots of that might be back many, many years previously with a previous leader or a way of working or a tradition of some sort that might have go way back in the mist of time, and everybody's forgotten why things happen like that. They just do. Now, the UK House of Parliament, this is an institution that is 1,000 years old. So the culture there is multi-layered to such an extent. I'm going to look a little bit about perks, office perks or benefits, if you like. To such an extent, one of the employee benefits of being a member of Parliament in the UK House of Parliament until only about 5 or 10 years ago was that you're entitled to free snuff. Snuff is snorting tobacco. I guess it's still available. I don't know. It's no longer available in the Houses of Parliament. But until really recently, this was an organisational or employee perk of working there. Why am I interested in perks? Well, if your organisation is in the business of investing in perks or benefits for your people, that might be gym membership, it might be car parking, it might be free beer Fridays. That can all look great, but actually one person's perk or benefit that's meaningful to them isn't necessarily meaningful to another person. And this gets to the nub of something. So I said I was a journalist, started my career as a journalist. That means asking lots of questions. And this is a theme throughout my talk, which is actually asking lots of questions allows you to discover what is meaningful to your people and design the best employee experience for them. So if you are investing in these perks, which might be, they might be nice to have, but they're not necessarily impacting the employee experience in a meaningful way. To do that, you need to dig a little bit deeper by asking great questions. So my first big question of the today is actually, what do we even mean by employee experience? It's an interesting question, and it's also a very hard question. I work with organizations, small and large, all the time to help with employee experience. But actually, there's rarely a cohesive answer to this question about what do you even mean by employee experience? And I think, so if you're struggling to define it, don't worry, you're not alone. I think the reason for that is twofold. One, which is it's sort of big and messy and really human. Maybe it's the humanness that makes it big and messy. So let's look at this word experience in the first instance. So the word experience really describes something that happens to you. So if I take my experience of working in the UK Houses of Parliament, my experience was, it was amazing if I think about it. I'd done a politics degree, and there I was working as a young woman very early in my career in the sort of the mother of all parliaments. What a tremendous impact that had on me. But also experience is more than that. It's also how something happens and then how that makes me feel. In reality, it wasn't all so rosy. This is, several years ago now. There was a big dollop of probably sexism and ageism. So a young woman in my early 20s, working in the UK Houses of Parliament, I had some interesting experiences that I'm hoping probably wouldn't happen now. So how do things happen to me? They happen to me in the context of my gender and my age. And my experience, how that made me feel, wasn't always quite as positive as I would have liked. So experience is human, so it's also big and it's messy. So that's one of the reasons it's quite hard to define employee experience. For me, there's another reason as well, and it's that the term employee experience isn't now just used to describe something that I have as an employee. It's also being applied to what organizations are doing about it. So it's being stuck on teams. It's being used to describe tactics and strategies and approaches and whole functions. So that makes it quite confusing when you think about employee experience, because it's both what's happening to the individual and also the employer response to it. So if you're struggling to work out what employee experience means, don't worry, you're not alone. These definitions on the screen now, these come from one of the things we always do, Emma and I always do when we start working with an organization or a group of organizations, is to get them to tell us what they mean by employee experience. And these are just some of the definitions that come up. We've got the CIPD, we've got Jacob Morgan, Jasper Sin, all sorts of other definitions there as well. You can see this, it can be quite disparate quite quickly. One of Emma's clients that she's worked with for a very large number of years is the UK Ministry of Justice. One of the things they do, as well as running courts, is they run prisons as well. So it's a very complex organisation. This isn't a definition that came from one of the team members there. So for them, employee experience is about helping our people have more good days at work. We really love this, and we hold this up quite often as a great example of a really simple, really easy to get your head around definition of what we mean by employee experience. So feel free to grab that one and use it if it works for you. In the book, Employee Experience by Design, How to Create an Effective EX for Competitive Advantage, we give a slightly bigger definition, which is EX is the experience someone has of you as an employer from the moment they first hear about you to the moment they leave and way beyond that. And the reason we give this slightly bigger definition of an employee experience is it wants to really land this point that it starts before somebody joins, and it goes on as a memory, because experience lasts as a memory long after somebody's left. And that becomes circular because somebody's expectation of you, the experience they have of you as a brand, what they hear about you, what they read about you online, what they experience during the whole recruitment process, that to some extent is framed by their expectation, which is what they perceive you to be. So thinking about employee experience in this way gives you a sense of the scope or the range of what's involved. It also points to the fact that the response to employee experience cannot sit with HR alone or with a team called EX alone. It is what we like to say, it is a team sport that you have to collaborate across the organization. Otherwise, you cannot possibly ensure a great employee experience for your people. So our first tip would be, when it comes to thinking about employee experience, or even if you're quite far down the track, is to do two things. One, which is to know as an organization, when you're talking about employee experience, what it is that you're talking about. And then start thinking about, okay, so if that's employee experience, what is the employee experience that we want to create for our people? And I'll come back to that in a minute. So nailing these things, having this conversation from the outset is massively important if you're going to actually deliver the sort of meaningful experience that people are looking for. So that's my first sort of key point, I suppose, or hopefully key takeaway for you. Let's talk a little bit about why employee experience matters. Well, I started working in this field when clients came to us, they invariably presented with the same challenge, which is it's all about attracting and retaining the very best people. The dial of that has shifted slightly since the pandemic. In fact, it's gone one way to something else. When people came to us, they were talking to us about something else. Now it's gone back. Let me tell you what I mean by that. So people used to come to us and say, you've got to help us attract and retain the best people. During the pandemic, clients were coming to us to say, how do we virtually recruit? How do we virtually onboard? How do I keep my team connected? How do I help maternity returners who are coming back no longer to an office, but to a virtual distributed organization? Those were the conversations that people were coming to us with when they were talking about employee experience. The dial has shifted back somewhat now, so it's actually increasingly now about attraction and retention. We're still getting a lot of queries about hybrid working, distributed organizations. Of course we are, but the focus is very much now coming back to attraction and retention. There was an interesting stat in the Financial Times today that in September, this is a stat from the States, but in September, 4.4 million people handed in their notice at work. I'll just give you that stat again. 4.4 million people in 1 month alone in September in the US handed in their notice. This is obviously, we're talking about the Great Resignation. People are leaving, and they're leaving in droves. And in the UK, we've got a very particular context around this to do with Brexit and labour shortages and so on and so forth. But I know we have international global clients as well. These labour shortages are not unique to the UK. So this is happening across the board. So the dial is shifting back in terms of what's driving the focus on EX. It is shifting back to attraction and retention, which is why we like to talk about employee experience as being a sticky magnet, because it helps bring people to you and it helps them stay with you longer. But it's way more than a sticky magnet. It's actually about competitive advantage. The benefits of employee experience go way further than just attraction and retention. It genuinely fuels learning and innovation, customer experience, and of course, financial performance. The image that you can see here is from an infographic we've created on the 6 myths of employee experience. You can download that on our website, fathomxp.com, where you will find a bunch of other resources as well. So do check that out. But what do we mean? So I'm saying that it's more than a sticky magnet. What do we mean by that? Well, okay, let's look at the evidence that stacks up for it being a sticky magnet. So what's really nice, in the years that I've been working in this area, the volume of data that we can use to support a business case is growing all the time. But these are just some of the stats that we like, that really support the business case. But do check them out, because there's a load more coming online all the time that can really help with your business case. Jacob Morgan, his research says that companies which invest most heavily in EX are 11 times more often in Glassdoor's best places to work. I'm going to stop talking and give you a moment just to read a couple of those bullets. So I am still here. I'm just going to let you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, just a small technical difficulty. Somewhere along the line, we've lost the session, but it's okay. We're trying to get her back as soon as we can. She's doing what she can on her side. We're looking into things our side as well. So it's essentially just bear with us while we attempt to join back where we left off. Just remember, again, a little bit later on, a chance to really explore what this format, the venue we have here online, the virtual venue, to really explore that and really take advantage of that. So remember, we've got the HR library where you can really grab lots of different kinds of resources. So if it's a podcast you like, you can grab it there. If it's a material, maybe certain books or materials concerning books, you can do it there as well, PDFs as well. We've also got the HR zone, also a chance to stroll around and simply have a look at and meet companies, organizations that maybe just offering the same kind of services that you're looking for a real match, and seeing maybe where you can collaborate in the future. And again, everybody here, what we're all looking for, all of us, we're looking for conversation. So start those conversations, book those meetings, and see where they unfold. So as I say, we're still waiting, hopefully, to get back online with our last session. In the meantime, I'll just leave it there, and hopefully, in less than a minute, hopefully we should be back. Okay, fingers crossed. That's what we're about to do. Ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to get back to Belinda as much as best we can. Unfortunately, clearly, between there where she is and where we are, we're not able to do that. So listen, we've got just under 5 minutes left until the end of the session anyway. So what we're going to do, we're going to close it right now. I think that's the best thing we can do. However, what you can do, remember, we have the other tracks still available. So if you want to maybe just hop on over to track B, track C, or track D. I know you're right, it's only the last 5 minutes or so, but it will certainly fill the gap before we take a short break afterwards and move on to the next session. So I'll leave it up to you now to decide what you want to do. Unfortunately, once again, sorry that these things happen. Belinda, what I suggest you do is maybe reach out to Belinda if you're curious more about what she was sharing. I'm sure she'll be happy for you to reach out to her, certainly on LinkedIn, and connect up with her. But from me, we'll stop now. Choose what you want to do over to the other tracks, or take a break around the HR Expo Zone, for example, and we'll meet you back at 1:45 right here for a session all about talent attraction.